Hello everyone and welcome back to another edition of Rich T Racing. In this version we are going to be taking you through what we believe to be the ultimate F1 calendar, and when I say we, I have been joined once again by Senor James Derrick.
Hello.
Right, so we're going to get into this straight away. Should point out there's not going to be much in the way of arguments and disagreeing in this one. That is for another video which will be on this channel very soon, but for now we're just going to take you straight through our Rich T calendar, and then we're going to go into our individual calendars, and then obviously we'll talk a little bit about how that all came together. But start with the Rich T calendar. I'll read off the first 10 and Derrick shall read off the second 10, but we begin with pre-season testing at Spain, and an important point here is that Spain will not be on the calendar. It shall only be a testing track. We shall go into more detail on that in our much more longer video, but we start the season at Australia and Albert Park, the traditional season opener, and that's just where Formula One should start. We then go to Bahrain, which is obviously, again, traditionally the second Grand Prix on the calendar, or certainly one of the first three. I have then moved to bring back Malaysia, and Derrick has agreed to have that on the calendar, so we go back to Malaysia. We then ditch China and go to the traditional fourth race on the calendar, that is Baku. I had some reservations about this, but Derrick ultimately won me over. We then make a triumphant return to the massively historic and obviously controversial circuit that is Imola, one of the best circuits in the world not to be on the F1 calendar for obvious reasons, but at the same time it's still so good. You've got Imola has to come back in our opinion. We then go to Monaco. There were some reservations about this one, but again, Monaco's got to be on the circuit, on the calendar even. And then we move to Turkey. I decided to bring Turkey back because it is it's a beautiful circuit. Maybe it doesn't produce the best racing, but from a driver's point of view, Turkey should be on the calendar. We then move to what we believe to be currently the best track on the calendar, that is Canada. Canada is just such a brilliant circuit. It has to be there. Then this comes to probably the most controversial one so far. We go to the Netherlands, but we don't go to Zandvoort, we go to Assen. And Derrick will go into a little bit more detail on that when we come to our actual, into our individual calendars. And finally from me, we go to Austria, to the Red Bull Ring, and take the rest of it away, Derrick.
Yes, so 11th we have Silverstone, obviously such a historic track. All the drivers love it, all the teams love it. It's so close to where all the teams are based, so such an easy place to go. And then we go to the European Grand Prix at Donington in the UK. Woo!
We're leaving the fucking European Union.
Yeah.
Oh god.
But
just
yes.
move on.
So moving on.
Let's not get bogged down with why we decided to put the European Grand Prix in Britain of all places.
Yeah, so then we move on to Germany. We both agreed Hockenheim over the Nürburgring. We both think it's the better track out of the two. And then Hungary, Hungaroring. Again, we both think it's a great track. This doesn't even need to be said, but Belgium, Spa, of course, what a great track. And then move on to the Italian Grand Prix, Monza. So I'm not that keen on this track, but it is such a historic track that it should probably be on there. I'm sure JJ will go into some more detail later on. And then Singapore Grand Prix, not as historic, but we both really enjoy the track, so it's got to be on there. And then Japan, Suzuka, not my favourite track, but it is, it can provide some amazing racing. And then to another controversial track is Watkins Glen in the United States. Instead of whatever the current one is called, JJ?
COFTA, Circuit of the Americas.
Yeah, that piece of crap track. Watkins Glen was on the calendar in the 70s-ish, and such a great track that should definitely be coming back. And then we end the season off with 20 races at Interlagos in Brazil. Obviously, one of the most historic places to end a season of Formula One.
Yep, so that's the Rich T calendar. So we'll now move on to our individual calendars, because there was obviously disagreement. We didn't really agree on the calendar. We had to come to deals and compromises, and there were filibusters, there were a few fights involved. But this is my final calendar. This is what I think should be the ultimate F1 calendar. So we start in Australia as in Rich T, but then we move to Malaysia, I'd put Malaysia second because for me, I started watching Formula One in 2009, and this order here. So my first 4 races are Australia, Malaysia, Bahrain, and China. I've included China based on the brilliant races we had, basically since its first race in 2004 up until 2013. The Grand Prix recently have been pretty poor. But for me, based on that, I think China deserves a place on the calendar. Bahrain, I agree as well. Bahrain should be on the calendar. So it's not the best track in the world, but it is still you can overtake there, and that's an important part of it. And again, yeah. So that explaining again why I've got those 4 in that order. We then go to San Marino for a similar reason, that San Marino was normally the start of the European calendar. I have ditched Baku because I think it's the most unimagined and dull track on the calendar right now, apart from as well as Russia as well. I've included Spain based on the tradition as well, just because for me the Spanish Grand Prix should be on the calendar, and also we were saying this in the previous video that we cannot think of another circuit in Spain, and obviously the Spanish have a big connection to Formula One now, thanks to Fernando Alonso and also to Carlos Sainz. So for me, that's why Spain should still be on the calendar. Monaco, then Turkey, Canada, and then we come to Magny-Cours, the French Grand Prix. I think the French Grand Prix should be on the calendar. We've decided not to include it on the Rich T calendar. But yeah, I think the French Grand Prix should be there, again, for the tradition. I think there needs to be more races in Europe than anywhere else, quite frankly. But it shouldn't be Paul Ricard. Because that track is just, that's a very dull track. Car park circuit, they call it. And no, not Paul Ricard, but Magny-Cours, for me, that's the one that goes in. Then we have Austria, Silverstone, Germany, Hungary, Belgium, Italy. Those don't need any explanation. Actually, no, Italy needs explanation because I know Derek doesn't like the circuit, but the tradition that Italy is steeped in. You look at the track invasion at the end. I know that a lot of tracks these days will have track invasions, but they come nowhere near the scale of what the Tifosi do at Italy. And speaking of the Tifosi, that's why Monza should be on the calendar. Like, you see the passion the Italians have for racing, for Formula One, for Ferrari. Like, you can't not have that on the calendar. And also consider the fact that Italy has been on every single it has been involved in every season apart from, I think it was 1970 when it was undergoing renovations, or it might have been 1980, I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, you can't not have Monza on the calendar. Then I go to Singapore. Derek did touch on it as well, that it deserves a place there. Also, simply for the fact that it was the first ever night race, and it has just got, even if the races aren't always the best, even if they can be quite dull, apart from the last one, you've got to have Singapore on the calendar. Japan, similar reason for why Turkey's involved is, for me, Japan is the ultimate driver's circuit. The flow it has to it is, you can't match that anywhere else. And they tried to do it at Kofta. They tried to do it at, I think there was another circuit, it might have been India or Korea, I can't quite remember, and they're trying to do it at Hanoi as well. I predict that won't work, because you can't take something that's been there since the 1980s and just plonk it onto a new circuit and expect it to work the same way. That just doesn't happen. And then we go to USA. I included, for me, USA is Kofta, because I don't really know any other American tracks. Based on Derek's description of it, I would have Watkins Glen as well. And then finally we end at Brazil for the same reason that we discussed for the actual Rich T calendar itself. So Derek, take us through your calendar.
Yes, so my calendar starts off a bit different. So as in the Rich T calendar, testing in Spain, but I don't think it should be part of the calendar. I think it's a boring race, but it is a great track to see where the weaknesses are in a car, so it should stay for testing, even if the weather isn't always the best, but that's where it should be. And then, so I'll talk about it now. So I don't think Monaco should be in the championship calendar. I think it should be a track that F1 goes to, but not as a championship race. This is going to sound so weird, but I think if Monaco was done in either like classic Formula cars or even like Formula 4 cars, something a bit small, something where overtakes can happen, something where all the cars are the same, I think that'd be so good. It'd be so much more interesting. Qualifying would be amazing. All the drivers on the same level because they're in the same car. I think that'd be absolutely amazing. Obviously that is never going to happen ever, but this is our like dream calendar. So for me, Monaco should be on there, but not as a championship race. So first race of the season for me would be Bahrain. That's because although I do like Australia and it is my second track, I don't think that the most exciting races happen there. And I think for the first race of the season, the racing needs to be there. It needs to be exciting. It has to bring people into the start of the season so that from that point on, people are going to be interested in it. So then second for me is Australia. So the Albert Park circuit, great track, love the track. But the races, as I've already said, can be quite boring. So third, then we go to Baku. It's a great track for the modern era. Overtaking can happen. Although the track is boring, as JJ said, with the modern cars, with how fast they go and how quickly they can go around corners, I think it's a great track. And the last few race, not the last race, but 2016 and 2017, 2018 were great races at Baku, and that's why I think it should be on there. So then we go to Canada. A bit of an odd order, but I think Canada's such a great track that I would rather have it earlier on. I love Canada, such a great track, definitely should be on there. Fourth for me. Then we stay in North America and go to Laguna Seca. Now I really enjoy Laguna Seca. If you watch our long video, we'll go into a bit more description on it, but basically because of the corkscrew it couldn't happen, but again, dream calendar, I think it should be on there. And then we go to the Netherlands, Assen. So this is a circuit that MotoGP race at. Fantastic circuit, such a great flowing circuit. Overtakes could happen there. It would be difficult to overtake, but it could definitely happen. It would just be such an exciting race. So then Austria, Red Bull Ring, Silverstone, and then I say Donington. I think Donington is such a great track. I would always have Silverstone over Donington, but I think Donington should be on there as well. It's so up there with some of the best tracks in the world that, without a doubt, I think that it should be up there. And then we go to Germany, so Hockenheim, then Hungary, Belgium, Italy. So for Italy, I'm not a fan of Monza. It's just my personal opinion. I know lots of people like it, but I do think that the Italian Grand Prix should be on there. And I think that it should be at Imola. And then Singapore, and then Russia, which JJ does not agree with, but I think it's a great track, and the long sweeping left-hander is so awesome. And I know he thinks it's boring and nothing happens, but I really like it. It's one of my favourite tracks, really. Just mainly because of that left-hander, but it's such a great track. And then we go to Brazil. This is the 16th race, and then 17th we go back to the USA and go to Sebring. Now, if you watch WEC, you know what I'm talking about, and you know why I've put this track in there. It's an amazing track. If you don't really know anything about Sebring, go and watch some WEC onboards there. It's such a crazy track, honestly. An F1 there would be amazing. The amount of overtakes would be unreal. And then another one in the US, Watkins Glen. I don't understand why they don't use Watkins Glen now. That's why it's on the Rich T calendar. Is an unreal track. And if I could only choose one track in the US, it would be Watkins Glen. That's why it's on the Rich T calendar. Oh, just an amazing track. And again, go watch some onboards of that. F1 used to race there. Amazing. And then for the final race of the season, I've said that we should go to back to Australia, almost kind of like ending back where we started. With Bathurst, I'm not sure if I even need to go into this. Everyone knows that Bathurst is an amazing track, and if F1 could race there, they should. I know some of the downhill bits are probably a bit too tight, really, for the cars of the current day. But I know Button once drove one of his F1 cars there. I think it's one of his McLarens. He actually still has the lap record there, I'm pretty sure. correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but yeah, such a great track. It'll be amazing to end on. There'll be so much chaos, so many crashes. It'll be such a great season finisher. And yeah, that's my track. My calendar even. Only 19 races with Monaco as a special event.
Yeah, so there we go. That has been the Rich T calendar, and then that has been our ideal calendars for us both personally. As has been mentioned, there will be a much longer video where we go in depth as to why we've made these choices and why we have ultimately ended up with the Rich T calendar that we have. But for now, that is all that we would like to say. We hope you've enjoyed this video, and do be sure in the comments below to let us know what in your perfect world, what would be the ultimate Formula One calendar. But that is it for us for now. So all that is left for us to say is thank you for watching. Do be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. And the final thing for us to say now is goodbye.
Goodbye.